Over the past weekend I was playing a whole lot of Kingdom Hearts 3, and felt I needed to take a little break from it here and there. Anthem turned out to be those little breaks, though one of them did last around 4 hours. I haven't really been following Anthem and only half watched the debut trailer at E3 or whenever it was, but I was vaguely interested, that is, before I properly watched the latest trailer and saw that it is essentially another baby's first MMO. It came free with my graphics card though, so what the hell. My impressions to come in this video are based on the actual game and the gameplay itself, rather than mindless ranting about the server or technical issues. I scarcely experienced any issues of that nature myself and pretty much played unfettered whenever I chose to. Server issues are always going to be a concern, just as they are with any online game. It's always the same every time one of these games happens, so let's just focus on the content of the VIP demo itself and the problem with the type of game that Anthem wants to be. Anthem at its core is yet another MMO light. When I say MMO, I'm talking about MMORPGs like World of Warcraft for example. Games like The Division, Destiny, and indeed Anthem have a lot of the trappings of an MMO, but their gameplay is simpler and smaller scale. The problem is that they all brought along with them the absolute worst parts of an MMO, or should I say, the biggest problems inherent in MMOs. From this point on, I'm pretty much going to stop mentioning Destiny and The Division and focus on Anthem, but for most of the general stuff you can assume what I'm saying applies to both of them as well. So the driving force for players in Anthem, the reason that players want to keep playing, comes down to simple numbers. Why do you log on to Anthem every day? You log on to do repetitive tasks, mostly dungeons, in the hope that you'll get a piece of gear with a higher number than your current piece of gear. And whether you care to admit it or not, that is basically all that Anthem has to offer. You don't get an epic story that gets you invested in brilliant characters and keeps you playing so you can get narrative closure. There is no narrative closure. This is a diet MMO, an MMO zero if you will. It's supposed to last forever, but of course EA will shut it down the second it stops being profitable. Do you remember that Guitar Hero episode of South Park where Stan gets addicted to a game where all you do is chase the dragon? See, he never catches the dragon, and that's why it's so addictive. Obviously this is meant to portray something far sinister than a game, but it works just the same. The reason your first MMO is so addictive, and the reason that these MMO lights are so addictive, is for the same reason. You're chasing the dragon. When you first start the game, the dragon is the level cap. You play to level up. Then when you reach level cap, the dragon becomes better gear. Now you're just chasing a different number. Perhaps where we stray from this a little bit is that you could say you do eventually catch the dragon, and it's then you realize how boring not chasing the dragon actually is. Some people do eventually get all the best gear, and a large percentage of people get a level of gear that satisfies them. Now you have absolutely no reason to log into the game anymore, and it's why MMOs of all sizes have massive player drop-offs until new content is released. New content brings with it a new dragon to chase. It brings you back until you catch it again. Obviously, I'm speaking very broadly, and there are people who play these games in large part due to social features. MMOs become a place to hang out with friends, but it doesn't change that the main driving force for players by design is one of chasing simple numbers. Anthem does of course offer free roam gameplay. You can head out into the world and play the way you want to play. That world though, as beautifully crafted as it is devoid of anything worth exploring for exploration's sake. You'll fly around and maybe shoot an enemy or two until an event marker pops up on your map. You'll fly to the marker, complete the objective, and get some experience and a reward for your trouble. There's nothing interesting out here. You aren't invested in the world through narrative strings. There might be some very scattered pieces of lore here and there, but the real reason you're flying around is to answer the next distress call, so you can kill some baddies and get some of those sweet, sweet numbers. You aren't going to get back to the quest hub and have a cutscene where those people you just saved by answering the distress call thank you and reveal a shocking plot twist that drives the story forward. That distress call was just a randomly generated event that doesn't mean anything, because the only thing that does mean anything in games like this is leveling up and getting the best equipment. Anthem could have the absolute best written questlines ever put in a game, which it certainly doesn't, and it still wouldn't matter one bit, because that isn't what people are playing the game for, and it also isn't the type of players publishers like EA, Activision, and Ubisoft care about. Those players aren't the ones buying skins and emotes to show off how good their numbers are. If there was any doubt that Anthem is anything but a numbers-driven diet MMO, all you have to do is look at the most requested feature by Anthem playtesters. That feature being a social hub where you can stand around and show off your gear to 15 other people. BioWare may have thought they made a different game by not including a social hub in the first place. You go from a first-person quest hub to the sprawling third-person world. Maybe they thought the set of very standard MMO quest lines would be the real reason players would want to keep playing, but I'd like to think that they aren't that naive. For what it's worth, the gameplay is really good for the most part. Flying and movement in general feels excellent, except for swimming, which is absolute dogshit in every single way. The 4 different classes, or should I say javelins, do have unique playstyles and they are all fun to play. I was particularly fond of the Interceptor myself. There is another thing I want to give props to BioWare for, and that's the customization options available by default. Javelins are essentially mechs, and one of the most fun and addictive things to do in games with mechs is customize them. I thought for sure that EA would have locked absolutely everything behind a microtransaction paywall, but you can fully customize the color scheme of your javelin using a full color spectrum. You don't need to pay $1 for blue dye or some garbage like that. There will be cosmetic microtransactions, of course, a lot of them, and I guarantee all the cooler stuff will be locked behind a paywall. It will also probably get worse and worse as time goes on, but there is at least enough available to the player by default to create their own distinct looking javelin. Anthem has tremendous potential as a single-player RPG. This could have been the next Mass Effect. It could have been a Western AAA developer's take on Xenoblade Chronicles X. But ultimately, a real, tailored narrative and an interesting world filled with lore was sacrificed to create an addictive gameplay loop where you do little other than chase the dragon.
Thanks for the liking, subscribing, and the sharing!
And I'll see you all soon.